Hey guys, I hope you all are doing good. So this video will be a very helpful video for anyone who is thinking of doing BIM Lifecycle Management course from Algonquin College, because this is a podcast with the program coordinator of Algonquin College for BIM Lifecycle Management Canadian Context course. This will be a bit long video, but the information is really amazing. I had a wonderful time having this conversation with Professor James Hayes, and I hope this video will help you guys take the best decision for yourself. This video is not sponsored by anyone, but I would personally like to thank Professor James Hayes for giving us this opportunity and explaining the entire program along with his own personal tips. And guys, before starting the video, please subscribe to the channel because your support is something that keeps me going. So without any delays, let's get started with the video.
My name is James Hayes. I'm a professor in Building and Information Modeling,
coordinator of the program. So the coordinator, what that means is, as you suggested, it's kind of overseeing the program, but just kind of, interacting with the students if there's issues with the students, understanding, what courses they need to take, etc. It's not so complicated with the building information. I'll just call it BIM LM.
Yeah.
To shorten it up. Generally speaking, there's no electives, so there's not a lot of, you have to make choices about which courses to take. It's pretty much laid out. Everybody takes the same courses. You can drop a course, if maybe you have a busy schedule or something, but you would have to make up that course in the future. But basically, I'm the person that, so I'm not like the dean or anything, but I just try and keep the program cohesive and help students out, and I can help point them into different directions as to depending on what their problem is. I do get a lot of emails from potential applicants with questions, and so I can answer all the questions about the content of the program, like what the students are going to learn, what they, how they should prepare, etc., etc. But in terms of the application process, I'm not really the person. You can ask me, and then I'll just redirect you.
Okay.
I'm not really the person out there. That's the International Education Center at Algonquin.
Okay.
So the International Education Center will help you with that application process, and including the admissions requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So they will. That's who you need to talk to if you have questions about.
Okay.
How to program. Now that being said, you were talking about what kind of background people need. So I'm just going to read so that I don't make a mistake, so I don't want to mislead it, and then I'll kind of break it down more casually. But it says what you need for the eligibility. This is from the website, the Algonquin College BIMLM website. An Ontario College diploma, Ontario College Advanced Diploma, or degree, or equivalent in a related building construction industry. That's one part. Or a diploma in a non-related building construction field with 3 years working experience in the building construction industry. These applicants will be assessed individually and will be required to complete an eligibility package. So what that means is, if you have an architecture degree, engineering degree, the college will look to see if it is the same as like an Ontario diploma or Ontario degree in architecture or engineering, something like that. If you don't have one of those things, or let's say your degree, the college or the university that you're coming from is not fully recognized, let's say by Algonquin College, if you have work experience, it says a minimum of 3 years in, again, I'm just going to read, it says a building construction industry. So if you've been working for a contractor, again, not like a laborer or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you've been working in an architecture office, engineering office, for a contractor, doing things related to not necessarily BIM, but the design and construction of buildings, project management, et cetera, then there's something called an eligibility package. So what we want to see is your resumes with your work experience. We want to see maybe a portfolio, some evidence, not just the fact that you say that you've done those things, but some evidence, it would come with references from your employers, et cetera, et cetera. So that is like, if your degree is maybe in something not quite in the construction industry, but you've been working in construction, you can supplement that with the eligibility package. So when you apply, if you don't meet that first criteria, then the college should respond to you and say, if you send us an eligibility package, we will review that to see if you're further eligible. That makes sense.
Okay. Yes, that's perfectly making sense, sir. Because a lot of students, like I have been replying to them, like you have to be somehow related to construction industry, because if you're coming from biotechnical industry and like entering into construction industry, that's a way big of a jump. Like you're going from biology to engineering. It's a big jump. So yes.
I was just going to say that the BIM-LM program is an Ontario graduate certificate. So the idea behind that is it's essentially a specialization. So you have a general knowledge, you have a university degree or diploma in architecture, engineering, or construction management, something like that, and then you want to kind of narrow down your knowledge into something specific. So yes, if you come from biology, some other aspect, and then suddenly you want to be involved in building information modeling, it's a bit of a stretch for our program.
Yeah.
Again, our program is not a degree. It's not a master's degree. It's an Ontario graduate certificate. So it's meant to help people specialize in something after they have a more kind of general education.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's perfectly right, sir. Like I have been saying this to the students like since past 2 years, but I think so like coming from you now, like I think so people will understand that you have to either take experience, get experienced, or do a course before taking this BIM lifecycle management course. So like that actually solves a lot of questions actually right now that you have answered. So one more thing, like recently there is one more program that has been launched, that is BIM lifecycle Canadian context. So I wanted to ask just an overview about this program. Like I have made a detailed video about BIM Canadian context program, like what all extra things it is covering, like because I have taken BIM lifecycle management and I know like what all things that covers and this is covering, like how it is special and how is it better for international student to take BIM Canadian context?
Yeah. So I hope it's better for international students because it's replacing the building information modeling lifecycle management. So the only one. This coming fall 2023 is the last time that the 1-year program will be offered. So just to be clear, just to make sure everybody understands, there's building information modeling lifecycle management. It's a 1-year program. That's the program that's been offered for the past number of years. It's being discontinued.
Oh.
It's done. This fall is the last time it's being offered. It's being replaced by building information modeling lifecycle management Canadian context. So that new program is 2 years. So this fall, both the 1 year and the 2 year are being offered at the same time. And the 1 year, this is the last time that the 1 year is being offered. So it's going to be a 2-year program moving forward. So I think I am involved in the development of that, but it wasn't I wasn't the person that initiated it. That happened before I was hired. Just to give you a little more background about myself, I've been working in industry for a number of years, for a long time, since the late 90s, I guess, technically.
Wow.
I've been teaching at part-time at Carleton University and teaching part-time at Algonquin College for a number of years. And I was just hired full-time by Algonquin College to be the coordinator of the BIM-LM program last year. So I've only been a full-time Algonquin in the BIM-LM program for 1 year. So it wasn't my choice. Not that I think it's a great choice. I think what's happening is great. But all I have to say, when I started, the decision to create the BIM-LM Canadian context was already happening. So now I'm helping with the development of that, along with some other knowledgeable people. But I do think it's great for the international students. And the difference is the BIM portion is going to be almost the same as the 1 year program. And I call it a BIM sandwich because what's happening is there's the BIM, right now the BIM-LM program, the 1 year program, which is being phased out, is 2 terms. So 2 semesters, 1 year. And those 2 terms essentially, I'll talk about the differences, but they're essentially remaining the same. And we're sandwiching it with 2 additional terms. So the first term is mainly the Canadian context term. So the idea is that international students, yes, they may have architecture and engineering degrees, but it is different. As you know, in India and other places, most of the students, again, as you probably know, are from India. We get quite a few South American students as well. And so the climate is different, the construction technology is different, some of the ways that projects are procured and built are different. So the idea is that first term is going to give everybody a background in. So one part is, let me actually, just so again I don't make a mistake here. There's introduction to Canadian AECOO professional practices. So just understanding kind of the way a typical construction project would work, who's responsible for what are the expectations of professionals in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So, project delivery methods, design, bid, build versus construction management, et cetera. All these kinds of things. Like this course is going to give you kind of an overview of the Canadian AECO professional practices. So the way things, the processes and the way things are going to work. The next course in that term is the Canadian Building and Construction Standards. So that's going to give you a background into Canadian Building Code and essentially the means and methods of construction in Canada. So yes, concrete and steel are kind of used around the world, but there's the Canadian Building Code. There's ways that are things done differently in construction, and probably not that familiar to many of the international students is going to be the amount of wood construction in Canada. Typically, you might think of it as a residential. There's a lot of wood construction and residential construction. But if anybody's following developments in Canadian construction, cross-laminated timber and other engineering, heavy timber engineering, they're building bigger and bigger buildings with wood all the time in Canada. So high rises that are made from wood, etc. Then the other course, past and present influences on Canadian architecture. So it's a little bit of a mix of historical course, just understanding the influences of Canadian architecture.
How the architecture was shaped.
But also the present. Sorry, what was that?
No, like how history shaped the architecture of Canada. That's
right. But it's not just the history. It's also what are the current influences. So things like the sustainability and carbon goals, etc. So people are trying to make buildings more energy efficient and better for the environment. Net zero energy retrofits, these kinds of things where people are trying to build buildings differently today. So it's a mix of that's why it's called past and present. So the history of Canadian architecture, and also the other influences, like climate. You can't, Canada is a huge country in terms of landmass. We have the Arctic in the north. We have, areas in the south where it gets hot and humid in the summer, and cold winters, and on the west coast, in Vancouver, etc. So a lot of different climates. And then there's two other additional courses, which are what are called shared courses. So you will be taking these courses with people from other programs. And one is applied professional communication, and one is professional skills in Canada. So those are just meant to give you, because again, what I hear from the current students a lot is what's the best way to find a job? You mentioned this to me. So these two courses are meant to give you some background in that kind of aspect. I would call it a little bit soft skills, communication skills that again, there are differences between Canada and some of the other countries that the students are coming from. This is supposed to give you. So the idea is, for these international students, it's supposed to give you a leg up, give you some background and all that stuff. So that's that first term. Then the second term and the third term are going to be the BIM term. It's going to be pretty close to the one-year program that exists now. Some of the changes we've because it's building information modeling. There's things that change in industry all the time. So we're trying to constantly make sure that we're meeting the needs of industry. So one of the changes that's going to happen is a course called Remote Sensing, and Remote Sensing Technologies for BIM. I struggled with the name of that course just because most people would probably recognize the term reality capture, which I really don't like that term. I think it's a marketing term. It doesn't really describe what the technology is doing. But I have a very strong background in using laser scanning, photogrammetry. So these are remote sensing technologies. Again, I shy away from kind of marketing term, besides the fact that there is a specific software called reality capture now. I mean, it's been around for a few years, but so just to kind of avoid confusion, I use the more kind of technical term, remote sensing. Just simply means that you're able to measure and create images of things without having to touch them. So I previously, in my research at Carleton University, and also I was a partner in a firm called If Then Architecture. If Then Architecture still exists. My friend and former business partner, Darcy Charlton, is still running If Then Architecture. So essentially the core business of If Then Architecture was laser scanning, also a lot of going from laser scanning into building information modeling. So I have a lot of expertise in that. I think that is something that is going to only become more prominent in construction. The idea that, just so people don't know, 3D laser scanning, you have a device that shoots out a laser many millions of times every second, and it can create a point cloud, so it creates a measurement. Photogrammetry is something similar. You can take a series of photographs, whether that's with a drone or a camera in your hand or a camera on an airplane, and you can create 3D models from those photographs. So that's going to be a course that's going to be dedicated entirely to learning those technologies. So the college, the BIM program has a laser scanner, so the students will get some hands-on use of that laser scanner. I don't know about drone work yet, but whether or not the students will actually get any hands-on work with a drone, that is still to be determined. However, we can produce the assets, we can take photos, we can get photos from a drone, and have the students learn what do you do with those photos. And as much as it's going to be, they're going to learn about some of these technologies, what I'm more interested in is teaching them how to know whether the data that they're getting first of all, how to ask for it properly. What is the, people throw around the terms of resolution and accuracy when it comes to these technologies, and, existing coordinate systems. And so how to ask for these things properly. So if you're a BIM manager or you're working as an architect or engineer, you know how to actually procure the services, or how to how to get what you want from those technologies.
Conveying something professionally is also very important. That's true.
Yes. So the other difference as well in the two, so that middle two terms, which is essentially the old one. So we're integrating that new course, the remote sensing, as well. If you remember, and people have varying experiences. I've talked to people who graduated from the 1-year program. They have varying experiences with what has been known as the Blitz project or the Blitz week.
Yeah.
The idea of the Blitz week was that for 1 week at the end of each term, it was kind of like hands-on learning, hopefully with some involvement from industry, but it was supposed to be kind of a cumulative project, so that you would have the 1 week of intense kind of a recap for what you learned for that semester. So that's going away. So the Blitz project is going away. And what it's being replaced with, though, is a term-long project. So it's going to go, first term is the Canadian context. The next 2 terms is essentially the BIM. And then the 4th term is, again, I'm just going to, so I don't confuse everybody, make sure I use the right names. So there's BIM Applied Project, BIM Project Seminar, and Career Development in Canada. So those are the 3 courses in term, which is going to be the 4th term. So the BIM Applied Project, the idea, again, is still in development, so we haven't exactly firmed everything up. But the idea is that it's 1 entire semester dedicated to a single project. And so I think that the way that I think we're kind of envisioning it right now is that everybody will essentially be doing something very similar. There'll kind of be a core project, but I think that it would be important that there is some opportunity for people to customize or to learn something that they feel they're interested in, but hasn't maybe been covered in depth for the rest of the program. When I think about that, I think I would guess that about 70 to 80% of the students in the program have an architecture background. Yeah. And then the other, 30 to 20% have an engineering background. So, as an engineer, you might want to learn, there might be an aspect of building information modeling that you want to learn that an architect doesn't, and vice versa. So my idea for the BIM project course is that there'll be kind of a core project that everybody will be kind of working on, and then there'll be some moments where you can, focus on something that you find interesting, that you feel like maybe you want to spend more time learning about. Okay. And then that last program, again, for the international students, career development in Canada, that is a shared course, meaning that you're going to be with other students from the college. And similarly, that's going to be helping students build their career in Canada. So more of those kind of soft skills, how to find work and build your career, basically. So just in recap, that 1 year is this fall. The 1 year is done. The 2-year program is essentially taking that 1 year program and sandwiching it between 2 additional terms. The first term is Canadian context, and the second term is going to be a year-long project focusing on a BIM project. And again, the idea is that it's going to be as close as possible to, it's an educational environment, but as close as possible to working in an office atmosphere. Yeah. So like a project that you have to develop and deliver.
Okay. That was amazing, sir. Actually, this will help people to understand. Like most of my points are basically what I cover in my videos is like you should take some experience, no matter which industry you are coming from. Like if you are an architect, just work for 1 or 2 years in India or any country that you are coming from. Just work in the industry and then go for higher courses or specialization courses, because that will first of all train you professionally how to be in a professional environment. Secondly, it will even make you focus on like what do you like in general. Like a field is very wide. Like you need to select what do you want to do in that field. Like so yeah, this will actually help a lot of international students to understand like, okay, this is how typical office functions or construction industry functions. These might be the issues that you might face on the sites. So that's amazing, sir.
Yes.
So my next, oh, sorry, sir. You can continue. Okay. So my next question was, sir, like, how a student can prepare, like what college professors would expect these students to know prior to coming for this course, like what kind of softwares they should learn. I know that a lot of softwares are covered, like even the basics of Revits are covered in few of the courses that are there in BIM lifecycle management. But what software should a student learn, or what he should practice just before coming to Canada?
Mm-hmm. So I do think, Revit isn't the be-all and end-all of building information modeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it would be very good to have some experience with a BIM authoring tool, Revit, ArchiCAD, or Bentley MicroStation, whatever, something where you have, because it can be hard to even understand some of the concepts of BIM without having a knowledge of those softwares.
Mm-hmm.
So the eligibility requirements, they don't require you to have any experience with Revit or ArchiCAD or anything. But we are strongly recommending, and I don't know if it's quite there yet in terms of what appears on the website, but we will be changing that in saying that it is strongly recommended that you have experience with Revit or some kind of BIM authoring tool. And the idea there is just that you're going to get more out of, once you're here, you're going to get more out of the program if you have that kind of background. Now, again, the idea for the BIM Allen program is to teach people BIM. But I do think that just having some background with some additional software, it's not mandatory at all, but just something like Navisworks or Visto or some kind of coordination software, just being aware, and you don't have to be an expert at all, but just be aware of some of these software. There's so many videos on YouTube, etc. Understanding, again, not that you have to be an expert at all, but understanding the common data environment. So, BIM 360 or Bentley ProjectWise, or some of these softwares that are meant to they're that data environment where everybody can access and everybody can access the project. Again, you don't even have to necessarily use them, but just have an understanding of some of these softwares. But mainly, one point I was going to say is this is also a benefit to the 2-year, I think, program. Once you are a Algonquin College student, so you come for the first year, and essentially it's going to be that Canadian context, so not really that much about BIM in that first term. But as an Algonquin College student, you have full access to LinkedIn Learning. So once you get here, in that first term, you can explore lots of videos and learning on LinkedIn Learning for all that software. And I just also want to make it clear that the way that I think of BIM, and I think the way the program is set up, is yes, there is a software enables building information modeling, but it's not just about the software. It's about all the other stuff that goes around with it. The definition that I like to think of for building information modeling comes from that. There's the BIM handbook for, I think it's BIM. It's the Building Information Modeling Handbook for owners, architects, engineers, and contractors, something like that. It's a Wiley book. But they call it a socio-technical process. So there's a social side of it, and there's a technical side. There's the software, etc. But a huge part of it is the processes.
Yeah.
Interacting with people, and so I just, as much as yes, it's good to have some software skills, and they can get you get your foot in the door in a lot of places if they know that you have the software skills. But it's the other side, the processes of BIM that really are what potentially bring about the biggest changes in construction, design and construction and operation of buildings.
Is it something related to BIM execution plan or?
Yeah, so BIM execution planning, workflows, understanding, standards, guidelines, the ISO, more and more people are interested in open BIM, meaning BIM that doesn't rely on proprietary software, so that more people can work. So you shouldn't be unable to work on a project as an architecture firm or an engineering firm or a construction firm. You shouldn't have to go and invest in a whole bunch of different software every project, and certain people are shut out of a project because because they don't have the right software. And part of that open BIM, the ISO 19650 standard, I think, is big as well. So that is an information management standard. So those kinds of processes are equally, if not more important than software solutions.
Yeah.
And I would find, in my experience, just generally on projects, when things are complicated, there's always exceptions, but there's always a technical solution. There's always a technical solution. More likely, what you're going to come up against are the social problems. And when I say social, I just mean, people don't like to change. People have done things a certain way. Also, there's, legal, architecture and engineering, practice of architecture and engineering are heavily related on contracts, ideas of liability. And so you're more likely to run into social or cultural issues than technical issues. Technical issues can generally be solved. It might not be feasible.
Yeah.
Technical issues I feel like are rarely a problem. It's more the way people want to work that is the challenge.
Agreed, sir. Like, human communication is something that is a major part of construction industry, and most of us and most of the people who are just freshers coming out straight from the college, they don't understand the other aspect of it, because we are working individually on our small little project, and we don't know that that project we will have to deal with at least 100 people. So I do get what you are saying, sir.
And there's a lot of people that are not just out of college who also have problems. The idea is, for me, is that BIM is a means to an end, right? BIM allows us to build better buildings, to eliminate waste, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people think that BIM is the end of it. So they're more concerned with using BIM because that's just the way we have to do something this way. That's the end. But BIM is the means to the end. So if BIM is getting in the way, and again, it's not that BIM. Again, BIM is a series of processes enabled by technology, by software. So if the technical side of BIM is getting in the way of the processes, then those things need to change. But anyway,
Okay. So, sir, my next question is, I'm working as a BIM coordinator right now. So this specific question is for all the people who have been graduated from certain course that is related to BIM. How we can grow? Like, I just want your experience to be shared, like, how we can grow as individual in BIM industry. What steps should we take after completion of a course, or when we are working as a BIM coordinator, how we can grow and develop ourselves better?
Right. So I think that giving yourself an honest assessment is number one. So it's not that different. It's something we talk about in the BIM-LM program, to being able to assess whether an organization or personnel within an organization or an industry, to be able to assess their BIM maturity or BIM competency or BIM capabilities in a reasonable or in an honest way. Understanding, I love the term BIM washing. This idea that people oversell their capabilities, not just individuals overselling their capabilities, but organizations will suggest that they do every single project is in BIM, and then the project actually starts, and you find out, well, there's like a handful of people that know BIM, and the rest of the company doesn't. But I shouldn't say no BIM. The rest of the company doesn't use the processes BIM. So number one, an honest assessment of yourself. Assessing yourself, and then following that up with a plan to make those improvements. And I would say that there are some, there's different contexts. So if you work for a big engineering or architecture firm, like a big corporation, versus a small operation, maybe there's only 5 or 10, 15 people or something involved. So there might be different strategies for different, depending on where you are working. But I would say that in the smaller firms, my experience from other people that are totally outside the industry but operate small businesses is, generally speaking, the owners or the managers, and again, this is more in the small world, they will appreciate when you can take things off of their plate. Meaning, if I can rely on you to do things that actually give me more time to focus maybe on running the business or etc., that is going to be a huge improvement. So just, a lot of people ask for, people want to work their way up. In a company, people want to make more money, obviously. That you've been working there, say now for 2 or 3 years, you think you deserve a raise. You have to understand you're going to be more successful if you can understand what your manager or the owner of the small firm actually wants from you. So if you can make their life easier, that's going to be helpful. So what I mean is, taking on more responsibility. I would say to do that incrementally. I wouldn't say to all of a sudden take on a whole bunch of new responsibility you can't handle and then it doesn't work out. Yeah. So incrementally take on more responsibility. Have conversations with your manager or the owner of the company about what the kind of the direction you feel like you want to go in, and then. But it's not just about you. You have to understand also what they want and what their expectations are as well. So it's kind of an alignment between those two things. I would say, be what's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, if you're just taking care of your business and you're not kind of providing more value to the company. So then, you're not going to kind of advance anywhere if you're just kind of taking care of your business and not really worrying about anything else. I think you need to incrementally try and take on more responsibility. As well, in terms of the way that I'm sure this way in most most locations in terms of architecture and engineering offices, a lot of ways that that architecture firms, engineering firms get work is basically through the CVs of the company, through everybody's resume, right? So you need to be able to say, well, if you're the architecture firm, you're trying to get this new work, you need to be able to say, well, we have this many people with this much experience. Here is evidence of their experience. So similarly, if you're going to advance further in that company, if you kind of fit within those boxes, right? If if you're 1 year experience, basically it can be helpful to build your resume. Again, not BIM washing, not lying on your resume, but by actually gaining experience. And you could write your CV or resume in one way, and maybe no one will kind of notice it. But you can write it in a different way that it kind of explains and maybe ticks off some of the boxes that companies are looking for and have more success. And then in the bigger companies, again, I think that I don't really have much experience working for these massive architecture and engineering firms. I would say that it's probably kind of this is not to say that it's different than those smaller companies, but I think self-improvement goes a long way. Kind of probably the bigger companies, it's more about, getting certifications for whatever, project management certification, lead certification, etc. I think that in those bigger companies, I think that maybe those things are a little bit more helpful. But I think that just assessing yourself, creating a plan to improve, and again, not just improving in a vacuum, you have to improve in the areas that need improvement, not just for yourself, but for the employer as well. They have needs, you have needs, and you have to get those two things together.
Yeah. So all of you guys who were asking me how to get jobs or how to progress in the field of BIM, so this special part is just for you. Do not lie on your CV, understand what you are So guys, I had to cut this video on this part because after this, the audio clip was totally ruined. So somehow my audio devices started recording and overlapping two audio clips on top of each other. And some of the clip got ruined. We did speak 10 minutes more after this ending. And we spoke about how to tune your resume. You have to see the job requirement. You have to see the keywords, the softwares that they have mentioned, the experience that they have mentioned. So these things you need to add in your resume, and you have to make your resume customizable based on your job. So every job will have different requirement, but you have to change certain things in your resume based on that particular job requirement. Again, do not lie on your resume. Be very honest. It's not important. If an employer is asking that you need to have 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience, and you just have 1 or 2 years of experience, don't worry. Just say the truth, and definitely you can get a job. It's not a hard line that no one will accept you if you don't have that much of experience. If you have knowledge, if you have skills, definitely you will get accepted. So guys, this was the end of this podcast. I hope you liked it. And again, apologies for ending it so abruptly. And guys, if you like this video, go ahead, hit a like and subscribe to my channel. So your support is something that keeps me going and helps me make such amazing videos.